You're tuned into Auto Intelligence, live from Auto Trader, where data, tools, and your preferences sync to make your car shopping smooth.
They're searching inventory.
Oh, yeah.
They find what you need.
They're gonna find it.
You can make a budget for your wallet to help you succeed. Pricing's precise and true.
So true.
It's smarter car shopping.
Ooh.
Just for you.
Oh, it's just for you.
Ooh.
Find your next ride at autotrader.com. Powered by Auto Intelligence.
Pie in the Sky Media. This series contains adult language and descriptions of graphic violence throughout. Listener discretion is advised.
3, 2, 1. Hello, Criminal Mischief Nation. Welcome back to another bonus episode of Criminal Mischief with Carolyn and Branden. I am Branden of this duo, along with, as always, the great Carolyn Osorio. Carolyn, nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Nice to see you, Branden.
Happy Memorial Day.
Happy Memorial Day, yes.
And a great thanks to our men and women of our armed forces who gave what Lincoln called their last full measure of devotion for our country. So much appreciated.
Yes. How was your weekend?
Weekend was good. It was good. It was busy. There was a volleyball tournament down by Disneyland, which, you know, at the Anaheim Convention Center, which is these things are they're a lot. They're
whenever you're like,
they're a lot. They're but we're coming up on the end of the season, which you know I'm happy and sad about. I love watching my daughters compete, and I'm also kind of happy that this season's going to be over soon because, you know, got a lot of other stuff to do. So, but so it was good. It was a busy weekend, and then, you know, a nice barbecue today at a friend's house, which was a lot of fun. And so, yeah. How about you?
Good. I actually did something really smart, which I'm very pleased with myself. So during the cyclone bomb that we had here in the wintertime, you know, that just blew everything like everywhere and tons of sideways rain, and we lost power for a week and all of that.
I remember.
We have this barge outside of our house on the lake, and a piece of it blew away, and it like, I didn't even notice it until I started kayaking, and then I'm kayaking at the end of the lake and I see it, I'm like, whoa. And it was like just this huge like detritus that we are responsible for, you know what I mean? And I just was like, oh my gosh, how are we gonna get that out? We can't just leave it, you know, just everything going through, and just busy not wanting to deal with it. And so my son had a couple of his teenage friends over, and I was like, hey, if you guys can figure out how to get this thing back, I'll pay you $20 each. And they were so happy about it because it was like an adventure, right?
Yeah.
It was like, so one of them comes in after they spent like all day trying to figure out how to get this thing get this thing out of there. And he's like, Mrs. Osorio, they want you to take pictures. And I see my son like sitting on a barrel. The other kids on it looks straight out of Huck Finn. I mean, you just don't see it every day. And they're oaring, and they were so proud of themselves. And I was just like, it was just a great moment. And I said, you guys look straight out of Huck Finn. And they knew what I was talking about.
Yeah, did they? And they figured it out. They accomplished. Wow.
And I gave them $20 each, and they were so happy. My son was like, I go, here, you can distribute it. And he goes, and Ty's like, okay, I'm gonna put the money right here. And he's like, no, go put it in the garage. You know, they wanted to make sure it was safe, you know, because they were sleeping in here. So anyway, it was just like, it was such a great, simple.
And how old are they?
14 and 15. 14. Yeah. Well, there was 3 of them. My son's 15. I'm sure the other 2 were like 14 because he's a little bit older.
That's great. That's great.
It was awesome. I'm gonna have to send you a picture because it was just so cool. And the other one's like kicking in the back. So my son and this other kid were on 2 of the barrels because it flipped over.
Yeah.
And then it's wood, you know, the wood was floating, thankfully. And then the other one had to like get in there, and he was like kicking from I mean, it was like grapes of wrath mixed with Tom Huck. Huck Finn. Sorry.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
I'm glad that they got it done. It's a
I'm gonna
big
send it to you.
accomplishment for some teenagers.
It okay, I just sent it to you.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Yes.
let's talk about Barbara Butcher.
Yes. Yeah.
So how did you find her?
Oh my gosh. So probably about a year ago, I can't remember like not too long ago, but kind of a while ago, I was watching this show on Netflix about homicide in New York. And it's basically like these cases in New York that and she was a guest and I was so blown away by like she was, you know how when you watch someone and you're like, she had the gravitas, she knew her shit. She just was like, I just was like, this is an interesting woman, you
That's
know?
how she met her girlfriend.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
I
I know.
know.
Yeah,
Because that was the power that she had.
yeah.
And so she came up on one of my social media platforms, and I was like, you know what? I want to interview this lady. So sure enough, I reached out to her. She got me in touch with her people, and we just set it up, and it was just exactly what I would have hoped it would have been. She was just amazing.
Yeah, I didn't even know that her job really existed.
I know.
Because I know what I know, CSI, NCIS,
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
There
yeah.
isn't that person that is kind of like the feelings detect. Like, how did this leave the windows shut? Were they open? What was this? I try to feel the room, and how they lived can tell you how they died. And, an autopsy will tell you how they died, but why? And what was this? And what was that? Is it a gunshot wound? Was it a homicide? Was it suicide? Was it an accident? All that. I mean, really, really interesting stuff and I didn't know that was a specific job. So
I
that,
didn't either. And I
yeah,
think that I don't want to blanket state that that's a function of New York, but I kind of feel like it's a special thing. I don't
yeah,
think that, they don't have it in every state, every jurisdiction. And it was just really fascinating about how she went about because you need to have medical knowledge. She's not a doctor, she's a physician's assistant. That's what
right.
she was.
Yeah, yeah.
But I just loved her story about how she like went to interview just have an informational interview with the main guy. She goes right to this, like, tell me about, and then ends up getting a job.
Yeah,
Like, I
ends up
just
getting
find that,
hired. It was interesting.
yeah,
And she said something that I've heard before and I still disagree with. And I guess it's just because, I mean, I heard it in a different context from someone in a completely different profession, but was faced with a lot of the same, I guess, moral questions where like someone who died in a fire, do you tell the family if they suffered or not? Like, what
Mhm,
good would that
mhm,
do, right? Like, I
mhm,
have a buddy up in New England who's a firefighter and he responds to a lot of accidents, and he's seen people in a car accident and they're like, yeah, am I about to die?
mhm, mhm.
And I said, what do you fucking tell him? He goes, I tell him yes if they are. I'm like, what, dude? Right? Like, I don't get it. I've never been in that a position like that. I hope I'm not. Um, but then Barbara was saying how important it is to be honest and important it is to be honest. And it reminded me of, did you ever watch the HBO? I think you have Chernobyl. We've talked about Chernobyl before,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
One of the best television series
Mhm,
probably ever. It was so
mhm,
good. Um,
mhm,
and in the courtroom scene at the end, the main actor had a line that just haunts me. He said that's such great writing. He said that every lie incurs a debt to the truth. Okay. And those debts always come due.
mhm, mhm,
Right. And
mhm.
so,
It's like making a deal with the devil.
I guess, and just I would just defer, I guess, to her experience, right? That being honest in those situations is somehow cosmically better or eventually better to know the truth about how a loved one died. But it's tough for me to really to I mean, intellectually I can understand it. Emotionally, I just don't really vibe with that
Well,
attitude. But I get it.
what's your problem with it?
Because I just don't see what good it would do a grieving mother who's like, because I had a good friend from high school who died in a sorority house fire when she was 19, right? And she fucking burned, okay? Like, they couldn't have an open casket at her funeral, okay? And like, if I was that medical examiner, I probably would have told her parents, no, she died in her sleep, she didn't feel a thing. Because how is that truth that she
I think that
suffered and she died a horrible, painful, burning fucking death? How is that going to help? Like, I don't know. I
I
just
mean,
can't.
I think that the way what I took away from that is that you're talking to so many families, you're
Right,
talking to, so many people, right? You have to have a creed to get through it. Like you can't make up different rules for different people. You have to kind of your own moral kind of compass comes into play. And I think that she took notes from her mentor who was,
right.
she liked the way that he operated. And I think that she didn't, I don't think she would have said she burned horribly and it was the most horrific death ever in the
Right.
entire world, Brandon. I think that, you know, you kind of have to, because then she has to live with the lie. You know what I mean?
Then live
Like,
with the lie. Then
it's
live with the
hard.
lie and give some comfort to grieving
Hey,
parents.
you gave me shit about Santa Claus for years.
Very
Okay.
different thing. It's a very, very different. A very different, very, very different. And you deserve every bit of that shit for Santa Claus that you got.
I
I'm
guess
just
I
saying,
just
like,
I
it's
hear what you're saying
right.
because
It's hard to see the virtue in not telling a white lie to assuage some of the grief. But again, like I said, I would defer to her experience. I just I hope I never have to put it to use. That's all.
well, I remember you told me that story before about your paramedic friend. And when
Yeah,
you said the person was like, I can't remember exactly, but pretty much, bisected and they were going to die,
yeah,
right? And you made a good point about because I was horrified when they said yes,
yeah.
um, you're going to die. And I just was like, what? Why would you do that? And then you said that he said, well, because if he wanted to say something to his family or he wanted me to tell
Sure.
them something.
Yeah,
And
if
I was
there's like
like,
some deep family secret, like the gold is buried underneath the pool,
right,
whatever, right? Like you
right,
gotta,
yeah,
if
yeah.
there's something that has to be, yes, I get it. I get it. Um,
It's hard to know what the right choice is because somebody would be like, I don't want this sugar coated. I want to know what
sure.
happened.
Yeah.
And people are so different. Like I'd rather I don't even want to say this, but if something ever happened, I would want someone to lie to me. I would want
Mm,
someone to I wouldn't want to know that my loved one suffered. I would want to
yeah.
be lied to,
That's what
you
I'm
know?
saying. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But other people might not want that. And
Right.
so it's like, how do you choose? Is it your choice to make? Anyway, I mean, it is difficult. Yeah, for sure.
Her
But I like,
9/11, her 9/11 stuff was really interesting also. Um,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
really,
I was
really
reading it
interesting.
in
I
her book.
haven't heard it that graphically kind of talked about before, where like it's so small, like here's a finger. What color nail polish did your wife use? You know, I mean that made it real.
Yeah, and she went into more detail in her book. That was
That it
just,
was getting that granular with identification of the victims.
yeah,
I hadn't heard that
yeah.
before.
Yeah, and it was and it makes sense, but you don't really think about it like that. When you're not ground zero, you're right there in the thick of it and seeing, I mean, it's just what they see is like I don't know how they sleep at night. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like between having to tell the victim's family what happened and trying to figure out, what's the right thing to do, how to do it, and then what you see on a daily basis. I mean, it's just a really tough, tough job. But she loved it.
Wow. Yeah, she did it for a long time. She must have freaking loved it. But I don't think that's something that you love. Like you have to love what you do, but not that part of it, especially. I'm sure everything has some emotional toll, but working that like I said, granularly with regard to what happened on 9/11, where it was such a national wound, you know, and you
Mhm.
were tasked with identifying and it must have been so just the kind of the sacred nature of Ground Zero there in New York, right at the World Trade Center site. Um, and how respectful you had to be and how the eyes of the world were kind of on you and all that. Man, whew, I do
What
not envy those people. And I'm glad that she's healthy because a lot of people that were down there, man, like she
Mhm.
mentioned it, like the cancers that you got from working down there because it was so toxic.
This Friday, Jamie Lee Curtis and Lindsay Lohan are back to switch things up in Disney's Freakier Friday.
OMG, yes.
It's an absolute riot, and the only movie that can be described as
So much weirder than the last time. What last time?
it's the frequel
You ready?
we've been waiting for.
That absolutely slays.
What deeply out of touch old person came up with that?
You did.
Wow.
Don't miss the comedy event of the summer for all ages. Disney's Freakier Friday in theaters this Friday. Get tickets now. Rated PG. Parental guidance suggested.
Well, and she said that, like, I think too, we've talked about this before about how it's a calling. And I feel like she
Yeah.
definitely felt, because in her book, she described she was in Jersey, actually, I think when it happened, and she did everything she could to get back.
Yeah.
She needed to be with her people. She needed to be at ground zero.
Yeah.
Like, she had to get there.
So
Like,
when do you think she realized it was a calling? Because it obviously wasn't a calling because she got picked by a guy during an interview who like
mhm,
saw it in her. And
no.
what a good eye for talent that guy or that girl was.
Mhm, mhm.
Whoever was doing that interview.
Well, it was would become her mentor, but what
Yeah.
happened was her story was that she, super bright, then she became, addicted to drugs and alcohol, and she was very open and honest in her story, which was like amazing. And then she went through this testing as a part of this program. I guess when you're in AA, there was this retraining program, and so she took all of these tests. Like, okay, would you rather be this or would you rather be that? Would you rather be a plumber or would you rather be skydiver? Would you rather do, those that kind of a test, right? And so then it really pinpointed either her being a veterinarian or her being a medical examiner. And
Mm.
so then that's when she went and did this interview with this guy at the top of the medical examiner's office of New York City. And it just, that's how it, they started talking about this job and what they do. And she was just like, oh my gosh, that just sounds so fascinating. And I think it was like her curiosity, she wanted to, she described in the book of her going into the caves, to try to find this body that had been, they'd heard about, that they were going to go and try to recover. And it was like the way that most people wouldn't want to volunteer for that kind of like going down into the bowels of New York City. But she was so excited to do it, and just that push pull of excitement and adrenaline, and I think that all of those things in this type, but the downside of, I mean, there are downsides to doing what you love. You
Sure.
get obsessed with it, you get, tunnel vision, you get whatever, all the different things that can happen. But I think that as far as helping people and being an advocate for people and trying to figure out what happened to them, and just because of her background with AA and, being in recovery, I think that she just really found that she was doing good work, and she had a calling to do this work.
Had you heard about, I think they're called the mole people in New York before, people living in the tunnels?
No,
Really?
no, uh-uh.
Yeah, it was, we thought not really an urban legend. It was likely true, but never really knew where because there are so many abandoned subway tunnels underneath Manhattan and a lot of abandoned subway cars that when we were growing up, we were told like there's a whole separate society
Mm.
living underground in New York, right? With a government, right? With they had elected officials and shit, and they had utilities and they never came above ground. They're people who were born and lived their whole lives and never went above ground. And I don't know how true that is, but there are definitely called the mole people living underneath the city. And now there's a huge community living underneath Las Vegas
I
also.
was gonna say I'd heard about the caves in Las Vegas, but I'd never heard of
So
mole
when you
people
say
in New York City.
caves sounds like naturally occurring. These are like public works that were
Mhm,
either abandoned or not in use, and
mhm,
so they're safe. They're structures.
mhm.
There's infrastructure down there.
I know, but
Um,
she even said she referred there was naturally occurring caves.
there are also underneath
Yeah.
Manhattan that where like these subway tunnels like open up into these
I mean, that would just be like
caverns.
my sense of claustrophobia, just as she was describing it to me, was like, you know, I don't know how safe that would. I mean, how do you how do you go to sleep when you're in a cave or you're in a subway tunnel in New York City?
See, I
Underneath.
wouldn't go into like the Great Pyramid because
Mm-hmm.
I'm afraid that it would collapse on me.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Well,
5,000 fucking years old, and I think it was going to wait to collapse until I go into it. All right, that's not reasonable. Um, but still, I still won't go in. I'd love. I mean, and there's nothing that I
I
would
don't
ever
think
do to stand in
you
it.
can't go in there. It's not like that. You have to, there's no like entry point. I was watching this documentary and it's kind of
There's an
like,
entry point. You go in there. You can go in.
I
There's
don't think
scientists
you
go in there all the
can.
time. I'd
I
want
don't
to
think
go in
you can.
and stand in like the King's Chamber and see those 70-ton granite blocks and not know how they got there. I would love to do that. But I'm terrified because I think it's going to collapse or I'm going to get lost and not be able to get out. And yeah, it's an irrational fear. I get it. Born from, my claustrophobia. But uh, I still want to go. But I was just in New York for a week and you get in like all the subway platforms, they're like normal, right? And then you get into the one at like Times Square where it's like 3 stories deep and you see these massive excavations and all these steel pillars and all that holding up Penn Station fucking but well, it's a different stuff, but holding up the skyscrapers.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and you're there, but they've been there for 100 years. I'm like, okay, I guess it's safe. And you just get on the
Hmm.
subway and you go to your place.
Hmm. Well,
Um,
this is a little bit different when you're like going underground into darkness, not knowing. But the guys, those rescue guys, sounded like they just really know what they're doing,
yeah, those
calling
guys
those
are
guys in.
they're fearless. They're fearless. So she had an interesting story. She has a very interesting story about being gay and having to hide it and dating a dude named Carl. It's not a very exciting picture that she painted.
Yeah.
Seeing Carl. Carl's my
Well,
guy.
she wasn't really excited about Carl,
She
okay?
wasn't. You could tell
She
she wasn't
wasn't.
excited about
She
Carl.
was not
And I bet
excited about Carl.
if you scratch the surface just a little bit, you'd know what does Carl live in Niagara Falls, right? You don't see him that much.
Mhm. I mean, I guess that's what I loved about her is her honesty, her openness. Even though she had this huge job and this huge career, it's like, she really put herself on the page. She really showed up and she said in her book, I mean, she said in the interview that, the first draft that she gave was like,
That was a
I
great.
don't
She's got a great editor. She's got a great editor, and she listened to him when he said, "Where are you? How come you're not in this book?
yeah.
Like I need you to be in the book, right?"
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I had a great mentor, a director that I worked with a long time ago, and I was telling him about a story that I wanted to write, and I gave him an early draft of it, and he goes, "No, no, 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 no. Get us in there where you cut. That's where the scene should start." Right? Like when I was telling you about like Bohemian Rhapsody, like I'm such a fan of Queen. I think Freddie Mercury is one of the greatest performers to ever live. Okay. And the movie that they made about him, they it was so sanitized and diluted, that what made Freddie was not only his voice and his talent, but was also the darkness, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the crazy shit and where his passions led him sexually and all that. And there was that one scene in the movie where there's that
That
beefy
bathroom.
fucking trucker, right? Who goes into the dirty bathroom stall. I'm like, what? And they cut, I'm like, have the balls, at least go in there, right? Let me see
I
Freddie.
I know, but
Yeah.
that's the thing about what's great about this and what's
She
great
shows
about
us
her.
Freddie. Yeah.
She shows us,
Yeah.
and I think that like that takes so much courage because you don't know if people are gonna like what you see. You know what I mean? And there's the risk of
You
that,
can't give a
you
shit.
know?
You want to,
You
you
know?
want to, you want to guarantee unhappiness, try and make everybody happy.
Well, and I think, I mean, not to talk about, the Shadow Girls, but like us working together on that was like, you basically saying the same thing to me,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I know how hard that is. That was really, I think now that you know me now,
Yeah.
you could probably now know how hard that was for me.
Gosh, you love the spot. Oh yeah, the opposite. Sorry. No, you do not love the spotlight.
You know what? Oh my gosh, I'm gonna just kick it. Kick
Yeah, I
it.
know it was hard, but it's also necessary. And
I know.
and not that it means anything, but there sometimes is a lot of truth and a lot of virtue in the comment section. Normally the comment section is the fucking sewer, right? It is. But if you just look at the comments for the Shadow Girls from like a 30,000 foot view, you'll see that a vast majority, I would say more than 80 to 85%, were in support of you inserting your personal story in this. And then there were maybe 10 to 15% of the haters saying, why the fuck is this about Carolyn? Blah, 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 blah. Right? So that was definitely a net gain, because the people that actually give a shit, right, and understood what we were trying to do with that show, understood the parallels, and that it was necessary and it was a meaningful parallel to draw.
Yeah.
And that it's not you saying, look at me, and it's all about me. It isn't that. And if you take more than 10 minutes, you'll realize it. And so, and my thing has always been, the more of whoever the host is, the better, right?
Yeah.
Because it's easier to connect with the listener. So, yeah.
But it's not the veneer of the host.
No, it's got to be the host.
I know, but see, I know,
Yeah.
you know that.
Yeah.
You want the dirty, you want the grimy, you want the
truth.
bathroom scene,
What's honest?
The truth. Exactly. I get it. I know. And honestly, like, I couldn't have gotten there without that,
Yeah. What's honest?
But that's what's so hard about it, though, is that there's nowhere to hide, and do you know how many people she's going to touch with her story about sobriety, her story about what it was like being gay and having to keep that as a secret, and just like, it really is something to be celebrated. And so I was really happy to talk with her and to learn from her.
Yeah, I could tell. You kept your fangirling like suppressed. I know you really wanted to like let it out, right? But you kept your cool, you kept your shit together, right? Mm-hmm. And you were just the right amount of praising and tough questions and so it was I enjoyed the interview. I enjoyed the interview a lot. And what is she? Is she retired? Is she just an author now? Is she doing anything else?
No, she's got her own TV shows that are coming out, and she, it was so gracious of her to spend, an hour talking to me, and when she's like, hey, we're still shooting. I was like, oh my, how crazy that is.
Yeah.
But yeah, has a whole nother career,
It's great.
After losing her job and like being in the depths of depression and like, rising up and getting her done, no self-pity.
Well, that was great. I enjoyed it, and I hope she's a resource that we can return to.
Absolutely.
She was great. All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Great episode. If you enjoyed this, Nation, please share it with someone who you think might enjoy it as well. Go over to Spotify or Apple and rate and review the show. Leave a comment. That always helps. Any kind of engagement just really helps us out with the algorithm. So we would appreciate that. Carolyn, anything you'd like to add?
No, thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next week.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
From Pie in the Sky Media, Criminal Mischief is an EVO production, recorded live in the beautiful Pacific Northwest. We're produced by Brandon Morgan and myself. Music by Soundstripe. For EVO Creative, I'm Carolyn Osorio, your writer and host.